Welcome to the Dream Power Show, where your dreams turn into reality. Here is your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman.
Well, we have an exciting show this month featuring some of my favorite guests. The great Betsy Chasse is here to tell us how science is beginning to see the truth about energy healing and the ways you can use it. From Robert Waggoner, we get the lowdown on the latest research into lucid dreaming and how you can up your lucid dreaming experiences. Sasha Graham shows us the connection between dreams and tarot and how to use both to uncover hidden messages from your mind. And speaking of hidden messages, Maggie Perotin reveals ways you can recognize the leadership qualities you never realized you had inside you. There's lots to take in here, so let's get started. One of the purposes of this show is to bring awareness to the power of our dreams. In doing so, we've talked about a number of ways we can use our dreams and about the type of dreams that we have, such as healing dreams, nightmares, precognitive dreams, recurring dreams, and the like. But the area that's piqued the most interest and that seems to be gaining in awareness in recent years is lucid dreaming. What is it? What can we get out of it? What new things are we learning about the process? Well, for answers to these and other questions, I can think of no better person to ask than noted lucid dream expert Robert Waggoner. Robert is the author of the best-selling book Lucid Dreaming: Gateway to the Inner Self, and has made it his mission to teach the benefits of lucid dreaming in talks and conferences and media outlets around the world. Welcome back to the Dream Power Show, Robert.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Well, Robert, let me ask you this. Is it just me, or has interest in lucid dreaming risen dramatically in recent years?
You know, I think the pandemic helped people become more aware of dreaming, and in the process, they became even more aware of lucid dreaming or realizing within the dream that you're dreaming.
Yes, well, let's get down to the basics as we discuss this. So, what's the difference between a quote, regular dream and a lucid one?
So, in a lucid dream, we realize that this is a dream. We know we're dreaming. And because we know we're dreaming, then we can decide what it is that we want to do. We can think of goals that we wanted to achieve, like if we wanted to heal our knee or something like that. We have all those options available to us. In a regular dream, we oftentimes just go along with whatever happens and make up a story to explain it somehow, and we'll see fantastic things. But in a lucid dream, we know, hey, this is a dream. I'm dreaming this. Now, what did I want to do? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, when a lot of people are describing lucid dreams, they like to say that, well, one of the things you do is you can control what happens in the dream, but that's not exactly true, is it?
Not really at all. What I point out to lucid dreamers is, well, when you walked around that corner in the city and saw a whole new dreamscape, who created that if you control it? And so it's obvious that the unconscious is also very active during a lucid dream, and a lot of surprising and unexpected things occur. So I say that lucid dreaming doesn't mean control, it means more aware relating to the unconscious mind or the larger awareness. That's really the better way to think about it.
Yeah, so, yeah, you're right, because it does, you may be in a place where you want to be, but then what happens after that is what happens.
Yeah, very surprising sometimes too.
Yeah. Something that happens to lucid dreamers, especially when they first start out, is that once they realize they're having a lucid dream, they want to rush through it because they're afraid that the magic's going to go away, or it's not going to last. But you say there are actually rules that can help the dreamer stay in the lucid state. So can you go into that a bit?
Right. I think this is something that every lucid dreamer learns, and it's what I learned long ago, even before the scientific evidence for lucid dreaming came out. I taught myself how to lucid dream. But the first thing I realized, if you get too excited, you're going to wake up. And so almost every lucid dreamer learns that the first thing you have to do is tell yourself to calm down. If you're looking at something really exciting, then look away, look at your hands or the floor, something boring to kind of calm your mind. So that's the very most important thing to do. Then the next thing I would say, you want to enhance your awareness. You might want to say greater awareness now or greater clarity now. And sometimes it's like someone turns up the lights in the lucid dream that reflects your awareness is increasing. And finally, you have to maintain your focus, because the lucid dream, it'll all seem so real. The nearby wall will feel real. The dream figures will look real, but you have to maintain your focus that this is a dream, I'm dreaming this, because otherwise you'll get lost to the lucid dream. So if you can reduce your emotions, enhance your awareness, and maintain your focus, then you can have a long, stable lucid dream.
Is there any place that you can't go in a lucid dream?
Boy, the sky's the limit when it comes to places you can go. Well, one thing that I would say though is people tend to stay in their comfort zone. I'll talk to people who have had hundreds of lucid dreams, and I'll ask them, well, what have you done? And normally they'll have fun, they'll talk to dream figures, and that'll be it. And so they stay within their comfort zone. And that's when I try to explain to them that there's much more to do, there's much more to explore. You just have to conceptually get there, and also allow yourself to grow and go further.
So there's more to it than having dreams about sex and flying.
Right. You know what? When people ask me, what are the benefits of lucid dreaming? I say, well, look, first you can access that inner creativity. You can engage your unconscious mind and access that creativity. Then you can use it to resolve emotional issues or resolve nightmares. You can also, I believe, use it to promote physical health and healing, which I think is really exciting. Also, you can do it to access an inner awareness, what I call my awareness behind the dream. You can actually access that in a lucid dream. And finally, you can use it for spiritual pursuits like meditating within a lucid dream or asking to experience the quality of the divine. There's so many things you can do. So really the sky's the limit, but it helps to have kind of an understanding of the environment if you want to go the distance.
Yeah, I guess actually the universe is the limit, not just the sky.
Yeah, right. You know, and that's really the case. It's amazing how deep it is, and also how you begin to see that there's layers of the self. You know, a lot of times people liken lucid dreaming to gaming. A lot of young people are involved in games and online games, and I tell them though, you know, in an online game, it's really you can really get into it. It seems like a virtual reality that you're getting into, but in a lucid dream, you have to ask yourself, who codes the lucid dream? Because there seems no end to it. In a virtual reality game, you know there's an end to it, and you get to the end, that's where the coding stops. But who codes a lucid dream? And that's when you realize you're really dealing with the infinite in one sense. It's truly amazing.
Yeah. Is there such a thing as we talk about recurring nightmares or recurring dreams? Is there recurring lucid dreams?
You know, what's interesting is sometimes people become lucid when they see a recurring dream symbol, or they might see a dream figure and think, wait a second, I saw that dream figure last night. Oh, this must be a dream right now. And so sometimes those recurring elements help us become lucidly aware. For me, one of my recurring elements that helped me become lucidly aware is I'll be walking along like on a sidewalk or a street and come to a rain puddle. And now I'll realize that I'm gliding over the rain puddle, you know, like 10 feet. And then I think, wait a second, how can this be? Oh, I'm dreaming this. So that's one thing jumping over puddles and gliding over rainy puddles is one of my dream signs that helps me realize, hey, this is a dream that I'm in.
Mm. So you say that when we have dreams, when we get lucid, it's related to our feelings or our mindset or our beliefs. So in that case, how are we able to like walk through walls or do crazy things like that?
Right. You know, that's one of the things that I really try to educate people on, is that the lucid dream environment normally reflects your mindset, your beliefs and expectations. And I'll give examples of like one time I became lucidly aware in a theater and decided to explore wherever this was. And so I flew out of the wall and found myself on kind of a college campus and flew around. Then I decided to return to where I had started, But coming from the other side, boy, those bricks look so solid. And right as I got up to that wall, even though it was a dream wall, I had a bit of doubt that I was going to have a hard time getting through it. And darned if I didn't get stuck halfway through the dream wall. And then I realized how silly that was to get stuck by a dream wall because it's made of dream stuff. And so I wiggled my way through and got back to the starting place. But what I noticed is that expectation of having trouble became manifest. And that's what I try to explain to people is your beliefs and expectations will become manifest. And so that's why lucid dreaming really helps us to observe our mind. And because our mind gets reflected out there, you really have to keep a good watch on your mind to go the distance in lucid dreaming.
Yeah. One of the things that I really like to use dreams for, and what I love about dreams is for problem solving. And I usually do a dream incubation and, meditate on a question that I want to have a dream about. But how I phrase that question is very important. So if you're doing this in a lucid dream, what are the best type of questions to ask? And conversely, what should you not ask if you want a good outcome?
Yeah, this is really an important point, and I always teach it in my online workshops. The way you phrase a question or a request in the lucid dream state is very important. For example, there is this one artist, and every time he became lucidly aware, he announced that now he would go looking for art that he could create in the waking world. And he would spend the entire lucid dream looking for the art that he could create. And then he realized that his phrasing was causing a trouble. So then he changed the phrase to now let me look at art that I can create. And suddenly art would appear on the nearby walls and he could examine it and wake up. And he said that when he'd do that lucid dream art, when he woke up, he said it was always the best seller at his art shows. Sometimes it was very simple, but people just loved it and were just really into it. But it just showed that there's a difference in looking for art versus looking at art. When you ask to look at art, it appears. When you ask to look for it, you'll spend the entire lucid dream looking for it. So those kind of questions and how they're phrased are really important. Normally, what I encourage people to do when they become lucidly aware and stabilize lucid dream is ask that larger awareness, hey, show me something important for me to see, and then see what happens. Because that's kind of an open-ended question. You're asking your larger awareness to show you something that's important for you to see. And sometimes those results can really be transformative.
Another area that I'd like your thoughts about are using lucid dreaming for health and for healing.
Right. So there's all kinds of health and healing. There's emotional healing and physical healing and all. Some of this got investigated by my good friend Ed Kellogg. He has a PhD in biochemistry from Duke. But once upon a time, way back in the 80s, he was eating a shish kebab, and he was so enthusiastic that he actually punctured his tonsil back there. And so his tonsil got infected, and now it had swelled up, and there were red lines down his face. And he decided that in a lucid dream, he'd try to heal himself. And so later that week, he became consciously aware. He had a chant to heal his tonsil. And he said that when he woke up, almost 90% of the pain was gone. And within 2 hours, the red lines disappeared and his tonsil went on to full recovery. So that kind of got started, this idea, can you heal your physical body in a lucid dream? There's been a lot of scientific research by Stephen LaBerge about how lucid dreams influence the body. So like he would do a research study where he told the lucid dreamers, in your lucid dream, I want you to clench your right fist, then your left fist in alternate patterns, and we'll have these little records on your arms to see if there's any muscle movement. And there was muscle movement in an alternating pattern when they became lucidly aware. But since Ed's study and since my books have come out, a lot of people have sent me incredible stories of lucid dream healing. There was one of a gentleman who had eye pigment dispersion syndrome, where the pigmentation on your eyes flakes away. And there's no cure for this. And so in a lucid dream, he intended for his eyes to get healed. And the next time he went to his ophthalmologist or optometrist, that they did a scan and found that his eye pigment had actually gotten thicker than the previous time when there'd been a dramatic decrease. And so it's really incredible to think of using lucid dreaming to help promote physical health. But again, it's a little bit complicated, and that's why people like me write books on it, just to make sure that people approach it in a thoughtful, intelligent manner.
Robert, how can people find out more about you and your work?
Yeah, my book's website is at lucidadvice.com, so lucidadvice.com. And also I publish a free online magazine called The Lucid Dreaming Experience with my friend Lucy Gillis. And so if you go to luciddreamingmagazine.com, you can see that free online magazine, and there's always great articles and reader-submitted lucid dreams that'll just blow your mind.
We've been speaking about lucid dreaming with dream expert and educator Robert Waggoner. We'll be right back with our next guest. We talk about a lot of weighty things on this program, like how dreams can change your life, or the effect our thoughts have on our behavior. For the most part, these are things our ancestors knew about, and there's a lot of anecdotal proof that they work. In law, it would be called circumstantial evidence. But for many people, this is not enough. They want scientific validation, tests, data, long-term studies and such, for verification of what most of us believe in our hearts is a valid way to journey through life. And that's okay. The more that science proves that these things are real, the more people will be willing to try these methods out and see how they can help them live healthier and more productive lives. One of the concepts that many people find hard to wrap their heads around is energy healing, the idea that unseen forces can treat or even cure ailments. My guest, Betsy Chasse, is seen by some as the godmother of the mind-body movement. But in truth, Betsy is one of the biggest skeptics I know. As one of the creators of the groundbreaking movie What the Bleep Do We Know, and in the scores of other books and documentaries she's created since then, Betsy's helped turn on people to the belief that thoughts create reality. But she really wants proof before she puts her seal of approval on anything, especially things that deal with unseen forces. And so she set out to take a look at the science behind energy healing in her new series, Energy, the Ultimate Healer. And she's here to tell us what she's discovered. Welcome back to the Dream Power Show, Betsy.
Wow, thank you, Debbie. That was a great introduction. I really appreciated that. I'm a godmother of a certain things, I'm sure.
Well, you are a bit of a skeptic too, aren't you?
I am a bit of a skeptic. I think healthy skepticism is really important. It's how we learn about things. If you just take everything at face value, then why would you dig deeper, or why would you explore? And in that exploration is where you get to learn the juicy nuggets of so many different things, the meat of it. And I think it's really important, especially today, when so many people really don't understand a lot about what we're talking about, and tend to not be very discerning and to repeat things. I'm very curious and always want to understand, how does this work?
Which totally makes sense. And so, speaking of energy healing, before we get started talking about the specifics of it, I want your take on what is your definition of energy healing?
Well, energy healing is, it's an interesting thing, because I've interviewed a lot of energy healers, and I'm putting quotes around that word because, when we think of a healer, we think of somebody who heals us. And one of the most important elements of energy healing is that the energy healer is not actually the one doing the healing. Your body has a frequency that is its optimum for its perfect health and well-being. And when it gets out of that frequency, you get dis-ease, out of whack, out of balance, your body gets sick. And what an energy healer will help you do is get your body back into the right frequency, so the body does what it's naturally designed to do. So energy is everything. We're all made up of energy. Energy is all around us. Everything has energy, and everything has a frequency. So when I think of what is energy, I think of it as everything that's operating in our field and in the world, and how we are aligning or in harmony with it.
Well, I love wordplay, and I think it was someone in your series who actually pointed out that the word energy breaks down to energy, chi
Yes,
being life force.
exactly. That's great. Yeah. Yeah, it's true, because everything you think of it, and the fun part about what I'm doing, it's so interesting, is there's so many studies now that show that when your body gets sick, it's out of frequency. And so the body is this amazing, one of my biggest frustrations with the new age movement is they love to refer to the body as a meat packet. And I'm like, oh my God, the body is the coolest thing. Like this thing, this avatar that we get to operate in, like, heals itself. It heals itself. It's crazy, right? It like cells speak at this spooky action at a distance with non-linear communication. There's this amazing thing happening. And when we work with it, when we work to get into the right attunement, the right frequency, our body is miraculous. It does the most amazing things.
I know. And before you started working on the documentary, did you have any experience with energy healing?
I mean, I did, for sure. I'm around enough people so that do a lot of this kind of stuff. And I could say that for sure I already understood that for myself, like when I'm feeling anxious or when I'm feeling stressed or when I'm worried, that deep breathing and that meditation and calming myself, that helps the sympathetic nervous system. For instance, deep breathing, right? Meditation, I already understood, does amazing things for your cognitive abilities, memory, weight gain, like all sorts of stuff. So I already kind of understood that part of it. What I really wanted to understand was, how does it work? And the short answer to that is nobody really actually knows how it works. Science hasn't figured out the quote how. What science can show now is, in many different studies, is that it does work. It does work. Now, to the scale that it works and to the consistency that it works is variable. I mean, we had people in our series who regrew their entire liver, right? And then we had people who, healed their shoulder. And then, so it can go the gamut. And it's important for me, one of the women that healed her liver made such a powerful point. She said she doesn't want people who are sick, even seriously sick with cancer or something, to go like, well, why am I, she did it, what's wrong with me? If we could nail this particular mechanism of what exactly it is that causes the healing, medicine would dramatically change forever, right? So that's the big question. But the hard part and the frustrating part is that mainstream science doesn't really study it. Most people that are studying anything around this kind of have to do it in the shadows, kind of have to risk their careers to do this stuff. So my hope with a series like this is more people go, wow, this is really something we should be looking at. And so that we can figure that piece out, because it is an amazing tool.
I know. And speaking of amazing tools, there's one point in your series when you talk about the MRI, which is a miraculous machine, a miraculous, modern medicine's, great diagnostic tool. And that what the MRI technicians do is that they delete everything that doesn't include the actual human body, and they just don't show anything that's outside. And they're missing all
they're missing all the good stuff, right? So one of the battles of science, and it's interesting. So you and I hear the word aura all the time, right? And one of the things that's so funny, science doesn't like to call it an aura. They want to call it a biofield. So if you ever hear anybody refer to the biofield, it's the same thing. Now, science says, okay, we have this electromagnetic field around us. Heart math, who's Heart Math isn't in my current, isn't in the energy healing series, it's in another series, but we've measured this frequency. So there's no dispute that this thing exists. But mainstream science doesn't know what to do with it. They're like, we don't know what to do with this thing. It's not physical, it's non-physical, it's not. Materialists want to touch it, taste it, smell it, measure it, right? In the series, besides that piece that Dawson talks about, which is that, you know, the MRIs and other images capture the aura or the biofield, Dr. Ann Baldwin, who is at the University of Arizona, has a device called the BioWell, which this was probably the moment for me that really, it was it. It was like there was no turning back at this point. And it's funny because I had gone to the doctor and the doctor had said, oh, you're having a thyroid issue. I think we're going to put you on this medication. You have to take it for the rest of your life. And I think it kills your real thyroid and replaces it. And I was kind of like, ooh, I'm not sure I'm prepared to do that. Give me some time to see if I can figure this out. I went to my Chinese medicine doctor who gave me some herbs. Herbs are a form of energy healing because it's the energy, the frequency of the herb that's healing you. Homeopathics, energy healing. So there's different types of energy healing, not just the like, oh, kind of energy healing, because everything is energy, right? So I started taking some herbs and I had to go to Arizona to interview the amazing Dr. Ann Baldwin. So she puts my fingers. So one of the things that your body does is electrons and protons are literally coming off your body. That's making your aura, right? And she put my fingers, each finger is attached to a meridian in your body. Did you know, as a side note, because I'm the queen of ADHD, but here's a funny thing. Chinese medicine has been around for 3,000 years, yet mainstream science says there's no scientific proof it actually works. Okay, anyway, back to my story. So she measures my fingers in this little machine. She pops up into a computer scan and into a computer program, my aura or biofield. She calls it biofield. What she says is your biofield needs to be solid all around you. If there are breaks in your biofield, typically that's an indicator that something is off energetically or physically in that area of your body. Here's a funny thing. Dogs and cats and animals have been shown, and they've done the scientific test, to come and poke at a part of your body where they've later found a disease. So it's the same energetic.
I've heard of dogs that can sniff for cancer.
Yeah, exactly. It's because they're in your energetic meridian, in your biofield, it's broken. There's a crack, so to speak. So she does this. She shows my biofield and she goes, oh, look, you have a little teeny tiny crack in your thyroid. Now, I had never said a word about my thyroid, mind you. Dr. Ann Baldwin was the one and only doctor, by the way, to ever do a government-funded study on Reiki. And what she found, they didn't even want to publish because it was so groundbreaking and so radical. And the great thing about Dr. Ann Baldwin was she'd never been into energy healing before in her life. She's just a scientist. So she does 10 minutes of Reiki just around my thyroid. We remeasure it again. Sure enough, there's no break in my aura anymore. I go back to the doctor when I get home. I don't tell him any of this. I said, let's redo the test. He redoes the test and he said, oh, we must have had a false positive before because there's nothing wrong with your thyroid. Mm-hmm. That was the end for me.
The one thing that makes a lot of people skeptical about energy healing is that it's kind of easy for people to call themselves energy healers, and as a result, it's an easy way to scam people. So how do you tell the difference between the imposters and the real deals?
So that's a great question. And it's something we talk about a little bit in the series because it's important to me. Because there are a lot of people out there that are going to say they're energy healers. And the truth is, we're all energy healers. You know, when you're a mother and you hug your baby, you're healing your baby. If you're a friend and you put your arm around somebody who's suffering or you hug them, that's energy healing, by the way. So everybody's an energy healing. But the real deal is a couple of things. One, no energy healer will ever tell you they're going to heal you because they're not healers. A true energy healer will never make a promise. They also won't say things to you like stop seeing your doctor or stop taking your medication, because they're not medical professionals. So if you're talking to somebody and they don't have a basic understanding of like the human body, that's a sure sign that that's a problem. The other thing is that I tend to say, go to people that have been doing it for a very long time and have great references. Talk to the references. You know, if they're new, that doesn't mean they're not good, but understand that they're new and go into it with that understanding. And the most important way you're going to know because some of the best energy healers in the world might not be the energy healer for you, right? So the most important tool that you have is your gut. And if it doesn't feel right, if you just have this moment of like, this isn't feeling good, then it's not good. Then don't do it. Find somebody else.
How can people find out about you, your series, and your other work?
So they can go to betsychasse.net. They can find a link to the energy healing series and everything else that I'm up to.
We've been talking about the science behind energy healing with author and filmmaker Betsy Chasse. We'll be right back with our next guest. What does the word leadership mean to you? Does it bring to mind people like world leaders, the president, CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, the head of your homeowners association, your kid's high school principal? Do you see yourself as a leader? Perhaps you don't. Maybe you see leaders as someone else, someone who has qualities that they were born with and that you'll never have. Well, my guest, business coach Maggie Perotin, says that that's just not true. In fact, she believes we all have it in ourselves to become leaders. So we're going to talk to her about what that means and what you can do to up-level yourself. Welcome to the Dream Power Show, Maggie.
Thank you for having me, Debbie. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, I love this topic, and I'm glad we're here to talk about it. So, Maggie, let's just start with that. What is your definition of a leader?
Definition for me as a leader is somebody who leads by example, somebody who has a mission, whatever that mission is, whether it's to be a great parent or whether it's to be just a good human being, and grows themselves sort of and develops themselves intentionally to accomplish that mission. So it can be a grand, big mission, and it can be a simple yet so powerful mission. So that's why I believe we're all leaders.
Well, but then why do you think that so many people just can't see that in themselves?
Because I think like that's the thing. We have images through, schools or social conditioning, whatever you want to call, but only the leaders, as you said in the intro, are only politicians or big CEOs and so on. In our language, day-to-day language, people that don't have people underneath them, right, or that don't lead others, like in that the way we understand it, are not called leaders. And I think that's why we don't see ourselves as leaders, or not always, not everybody does.
We just have to embrace that new definition that's more encompassing.
Yeah, that's right. It all starts of how we think about ourselves, right? If we think of ourselves as a leader, and I believe, again, we're all leaders because it starts with us. So we're leaders of ourselves. We're leaders of our life. And what leaders also means in intentionality, right? Where we are in power and in control how we develop ourselves, how our life goes. And then when we start with that, then the rest follows, sort of thing.
So how do we develop that leadership mindset?
So the first, definitely start thinking of yourself as leaders. And I always say, even we sometimes don't realize that we have people around us, right? Like none of us is truly alone. We have people around us that observe us and look up to us. It could be our kids if we're parents, but it could be our nieces and nephews if we're not. It could be people at work around us, right? We might not be a manager, but if we have been maybe in our role for longer and there's a new employee coming in, they might be looking up to us as a peer leader, right? It could be in any other way. So when we embrace that, and then it's really having sort of that internal value of wanting to do the best we can with what we have and growing ourselves. So when we develop that like drive to grow and wanting to better ourselves in whatever we do and being the best we can, that's when we start taking steps towards doing it. And that's when we lead.
Yeah.
We start leading.
Right. A lot of the things that we talk about, in talking to other empowerment coaches and people of that nature, is all about the idea of the self-limiting beliefs that we put on ourselves. And I'm sure if you're saying to somebody, oh, you could be a leader, they will probably come back whether it's something they say out loud or whether it's something they say internally. They're probably saying things like, oh, I'm not good enough, or I'm too small to do that, or something like that. How do you deal with those beliefs and change those beliefs so that they can become empowered to believe in themselves more?
So first of all, I say you are a leader, and it starts with you. You're leading yourself, right? Whether you want it or not. Some of it is subconscious, not intentional. It might be going in the direction you don't want to. And some of it is a direction that. So you are already a leader, and what you can do and start leading yourself truly in a direction you fully want to, right? And yes, as you say, we all have certain limiting beliefs, and the way to kind of overcome this is through personal growth and development. And whether it's, we start with maybe some podcasts like Debbie's radio show, and I'm sure you've had so many fantastic guests that can be inspiring, right? Whether it's through books, whether we find a mentor, whether we hire a coach to help us, because it's the process, and start breaking one belief at a time and replacing them with new beliefs that serve us one at a time and make them permanent. That's how it stays started. First, think of yourself as a leader, because you already are. You're leading a life, and you're leading yourself, right, in a direction that you've chosen or not, but you're going somewhere. So yeah, we're like human beings. We're intentional. We're not animals where we don't have a brain or just like respond to some, like, how do you say, like external factors or whatever. We can, through our human brain, we can choose things, make decisions, and that's already leading ourselves.
Yeah, I love what you just said a couple of sentences ago, where you said, we are leading our life. And it sounds so simple, but it's really kind of an important concept, because so many people don't really look at themselves that way, that they just say, so like, life is leading us, not that we have that control. And so it's probably also a matter of believing that you have that control.
Yeah. And maybe, like, you're right, maybe that's the first shift that you do, right? That you have control, and how you have control is by the decisions you make, the actions you take, and the reactions that you have to things that are out of your control, right? So yes, of course, we can't control what other people say, what they think. We can't control economy or circumstances. There are things outside of us that we truly can't control, but we can control our reaction to it, right? How we think about it and what we're going to do about this if it impacts us, right? In one way, any way, shape, or form. So that's what so when we focus on that, then we start being intentional. We start seeing that we actually have power and control our life, and we can direct it a certain way. And then we start believing, yeah, I'm leading my life, right?
That's wonderful. I want to get down to something a little bit more specific. You coach a lot of entrepreneurs in helping them grow their businesses. So what does it mean to be a leader if you're a solopreneur and you're the only one in your company?
So it means that, again, you are leading your business, right? So when you started your business, it was a decision and intention to bring value and offer whatever you're offering to your clients. And through that, probably, just an assumption, make some income out of it. And with that, support your family and whatever, right? So you chose to start and lead that business, because if you don't, and if you let it happen, then of course you shouldn't be like expecting certain results. Well, if I let my business do whatever, then I shouldn't be upset that I'm not getting results and so on. But if you want that business to grow and create certain income, serve certain amount of clients, create a result, you're the one leading it through your ideas and decisions that you make, strategies that you choose to grow it, right? So that's how you're the leader. And then as you grow it, and now you're maybe ready to scale, you start thinking, okay, I need some help. Now you're becoming a people leader, right? But at first, you lead your business to the vision that you had when you started.
Okay. So let's say you are growing your business and you get to the point where you can take on, one employee or a couple of employees. What kinds of skills make you a good leader that creates an inviting place for your employees and inspires them to up themselves up to their own leadership levels?
So there are some like basic skills and then let's say more advanced skills. So let's start with the basic skills that you actually can develop when you're leading your business as a solopreneur. And that is, for example, listening and clear communication. When you listen, and you can start by listening to your ideal clients, right? In your marketing and kind of feeling and understanding what are their challenges, what are their dreams, and so on. When you listen to understand, it helps when you have employees and communicating with them. We always, as leaders, should at least first listen and not listen to respond, as they say, but listen to understand. The second is clearly communicating our vision, our expectations, mission, and so on, right? And it seems simple, but it's not. Like, I've been in a corporate world, a leader in a corporate world for many years, and the majority of escalations or challenges that I had to deal with and resolve, like I would say 80% were a result of miscommunication. Okay, like really, somebody didn't read something, they didn't articulate something, then with that came misunderstanding and so on, right? So when we learn how to communicate without assuming that other people know certain things that are just like a fact for us, right? And that comes again very handy in marketing your business, right? Our clients are not at the expert level of understanding of our business and what we offer and our value, and we need to communicate it to them very simply. So then they're like, oh yeah, Debbie can help me. She has something I need, right? Then we can transpose those skills and use it in when we have employees in communicating our expectations, the results we want to create in communicating and so on. So those would be like the two first ones, right? Then the more advanced skills would be how to understand people and what motivates them, understand their strengths and play to that, right? While growing your company. So how to match the mission and vision you have for the company with the strengths of your employees and what motivates them so they feel like they belong, like they contribute, right? And listening helps. And then work together, right? So like not being a micromanagement. So there is certain like ability to let go and not control.
And Maggie, how can people find out more about you and your work?
The best place to find me is my website, stairwaytoleadership.com. It's one word, stairwaytoleadership.com. Or alternatively, I do have a podcast that's called The Diamond Effect, where I talk mostly about entrepreneurship and running a business, but that's also a way to get to know me a little bit, what I'm all about as a coach.
We've been talking about leadership with Maggie Perotin. We'll be right back with our next guest. I think I've been intrigued with magic my entire life. When I was a kid, I met a magician and got a good slap on the hand when I tried to look into his pockets to see how he came up with his tricks. In my days of writing young adult novels, I even made a heroine, and of course, the boys she sought, amateur magicians. But even then, I saw this type of magic as make believe, a trick of the eyes. In fact, as we all know, another word for magic is illusion. So that's why I was a bit surprised when Tarot Master Sasha Graham, a previous guest on this program, called one of her books The Magic of Tarot. To me, tarot holds key truths, and I know she believes this as well, and doesn't see it as anything make believe at all. So, what does she mean by the magic of tarot, and how may we benefit by it? Well, let's find out. Welcome to the Dream Power Show, Sasha.
Hi, Debbie. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it is my pleasure, but I want to get right to it. So, what do you mean by the magic of tarot?
When I talk about the magic of tarot, what I'm talking about is the entire world of possibility that opens up around you when you open up a deck of tarot cards and start working with them in like a very positive and enchanted way.
Very succinct. And you actually say that this magic has its own set of rules, though. So can you talk about that?
It does. It does. So, and when we talk about something like magic, I think that there's a lot of other words. I think a lot of people actually are using magic in their lives, a lot of very successful people that wouldn't necessarily call themselves magicians, but these people, right? Because you kind of can't look away from them. They look as if they've swallowed the moon, and so magic is really about diving into that kind of energetic field or energetic river where you're kind of like in alignment with who you are authentically. And that authentic alignment in the way that you kind of bring yourself to everything that you do in your life aligns with the expanding energy of the universe. That is magic. And the reason that tarot is so helpful is because it's literally like a roadmap. It's kind of like you can check in and kind of take a really objective look at your life, at your choices, at where you're going. And it's kind of like a sounding board. And the deeper you move into your tarot practice, you rapidly discover that you're not necessarily reading the cards alone. And artists and poets and painters and actors understand this, right? When we're in creation mode, it's not just us. And the magic is that space with which envelops us when we're doing that. And whoever or whatever that other hand is up to you to name and decide and discover what that might be for yourself.
I know. I love that it's all about possibilities, because possibilities are endless, which means that you have the whole world to decide.
At your fingertips. And if you look at the nature of the material world, it is endless. If you sat and decided to sort of contemplate a rose in your garden for 10 minutes, the more you focus on it, the more you discover and the deeper you go, and you realize it's not just what you see on the surface, there's more depth, and that's a great thing about the tarot is and storytelling. It helps you create depth and new understandings in what's in front of you and how you respond to it.
Yeah, and you mentioned that word storytelling, and I want to get into it because you do say that tarot is storytelling.
It absolutely is storytelling. And it doesn't matter what sort of a tarot reading you're either giving or getting. You might sit down in front of someone who's going to predict what's going to happen to you. They're going to tell that to you in the form of a story. Everything in our life is storytelling. And there's two storytellers, right? There's the internal voice inside of our head, that voice where we're constantly like the internal self, that's storytelling. And then the external voice that you and I are using right now as we're communicating with one another. And so the entire suit of swords, right? There's 14 cards in the tarot deck that are devoted specifically to the way that we narrate what's happening to us, the way that we understand and how we make the story inside of our head to make sense of our life and our world. So it helps you sort of start to examine like, what stories am I telling? How am I talking to myself? And that's where you suddenly discover, well, if I can enhance or change the way I'm telling my story, I can really literally change my life.
Which is just amazing. Amazing that we can actually do that. I wanted to get back to the actual tarot cards themselves, because they are symbolic of this magic that is possible for us. The cards, they all have the same characters. They have, you know, the major arcana with their characters and minor arcana with the suits and everything. One thing I've always been curious about, though, is why are there so many different decks?
So thank you for bringing up that the structure of a traditional tarot deck never changes. And that's a really wonderful thing, because it is that structure that's like a skeleton that never really alters, so that it fits perfectly into so many different things. And you always know kind of what you're getting. There are hundreds of thousands of different kinds of tarot decks on the market, which is great, because if you're just learning tarot, you want to get a deck that you're beguiled by the art. So if you're into Shakespeare, there's Shakespeare tarot. If you're into fairies, there's a million fairy decks. Like any kind of aesthetic, art style, theme, pop culture, television show. I think a Stranger Things tarot deck just came out. Like anything that you're into, chances are you can find a tarot deck with that vibe, with that artwork. But that's just kind of like, it's kind of like the clothing, right, that tarot deck puts on. Underneath all of our clothes, our bodies, right, we're all very similar to, if we're fortunate to have 2 arms, 2 legs, like we're all kind of built the same, no matter what we choose to put on top of ourselves. With tarot structure, it's exactly the same thing. So you may be using like a Game of Thrones tarot deck, but the underlying structure and all of the magical esoteric stuff embedded inside of that remains the same.
Okay. So if you're new to it and you're deciding to pick a deck, you just really kind of go with your gut.
100%. When I was just having this conversation this morning with a friend, and she was like, "How do I know?" And I said, tarot it's a relationship. And so the same way that, like, when you meet someone and you're like, oh, I really kind of vibe and like this person, like I want to get to know them more, that's the kind of feeling you should have when a deck sparks your interest. If you're in a bookstore or looking at decks online, you'll know it's that internal spark of like, ooh, I want to see more of this. That's what you want to follow, and that's the deck you should purchase and start working with immediately.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is a show about dreams, as I like to say at the beginning, and there are quite a few similarities between tarot reading and dream work. For example, something that all dream workers use to help them remember their dreams and to work their dreams is to keep a dream journal. One thing you also recommend to people who are trying to understand what they see in their own readings is to keep a tarot journal. So what constitutes a tarot journal, and what kind of things would you put in it?
So a tarot journal, and I always kind of preface this by saying, I feel like there tend to be 2 types of people in the world, the journalers and the non-journalers, right? So I think that some people who are non-journalers or don't love to sit down and write for 45 minutes, when inspiration strikes. Let me just say straight away that a tarot journal can be as simple as like a list of like keywords so that you remember what happened when you looked at a card or you want to record something. So a tarot journal can be super duper simple. And really, it is just a record of an experience that you had with the card. Pulling a single card a day is a wonderful way to kind of get familiar, because 78 cards can feel very overwhelming when you first open them up and want to start playing with them and working with them. But it's a slow process, and it's a never-ending journey, the same way that dream interpretation is. So you might want to have something that's just about pulling a card a day and what strikes you about the card. Often people in tarot journals will literally sketch a card, and that's a wonderful thing to do, even if you're not an artist, because there's a lot of secret symbolism embedded specifically in the more occult decks. So if you're sketching the card, you're going to start discovering things you didn't see at first. And also, it is a form of meditation. So you're moving into the energy of that card, because there is archetypal energy behind each of the 78 cards. You could keep a journal of readings that you do for other people. You could, perhaps you're doing like magic spells with tarot, and you might want to write down, this is what I did, and this is how I arranged my ritual and my intention, and then this is what happened. So it really, tarot journals, like dream journals, I would imagine, really become a record not only of your experience with the cards or with your dreams, but also kind of an imprint of where you were at that particular time in your life. So they're wonderful to have as reference to look back on, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years later, and just kind of see how far you've come.
You have a technique of using tarot to help get insight into where your dream is coming from, which is called the dream auriculum, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Mm-hmm. So tell me about this and the formula you use for figuring this out, because I think this was just totally fascinating to me when I saw this.
Yeah. So, and just, again, I'm a huge fan of dreams as well. And I love using tarot as a doorway into everything. So there's this fun numerological thing that you can do after you've had a dream. Or, you could even go back to recurring dreams. We have those recurring dreams. You could also kind of like figure it out. But you numerologically reduce the date, the time, the age you were at, and the day of the week when you had the dream. And you reduce it down to a number that that aligns with the major arcana, right? So there's 22 major arcana cards. And then with that, you kind of use that card as a doorway of understanding what the dream was about, or an energy within you from which that dream sprang. So it's just a new way, an interesting way of diving into your subconscious self and try and figure out, and it's incredibly helpful, because it brings a whole new wealth of information to the dream that you had in a way you can understand it.
Oh, that is so true. I just have one technical question about it.
Yes.
So you say you assign a number for the day that you have the dream. Let's say if you go to sleep Sunday night, is it Sunday you have the dream or Monday?
Yeah, that's a good, well, so I would say most of us tend to, unless we wake up from a dream immediately, I feel like most of us tend to wake up from our sleeping, like having our dreams right before we wake up for the day. So I would count the after midnight, you know what I mean? Unless I knew it was definitely a before midnight wake up, or a daydream where I was, where you were napping. But that's a great question.
Hey, we've been speaking about the magic of tarot with Sasha Graham. I hope you've enjoyed today's program. If so, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Until next time, this is Debbie Spector-Weissman saying, sweet dreams, everybody.